everybody. This is Tim Bost with FinancialCyclesWeekly.com, and we're going to take a quick look today at some of the concerns astrologically associated with Donald Trump's slew of indictments. On Monday of this week, we got an indictment from the grand jury in Atlanta, Georgia, and multiple defendants there, multiple indictments handed down, multiple charges on the 14th of August. And so we want to take a quick look at what was going on astrologically with that, because what we're seeing are some patterns emerging with Trump's horoscope and some of these criminal indictments. I think it's a total of 91 separate counts right now that he's been charged with for felony crimes. So it's quite a bunch. Anyway, so let's take a look at this chart. Again, the indictment was handed down or voted from the grand jury late on the night of the 14th. They were supposed to finish the session at 5 p.m. They went into overtime to get a vote in, and then handed it over to the judge at 10:33, just a couple of minutes after 10:30 p.m. That night. And so it took another couple hours for everything to get printed out and unseal it, so to speak, to get it for public distribution. But that was the hour that the indictment actually went through. This is the astrological chart for the handing over of the indictment to the judge. Pretty good timing on this one. And what we're looking at here are two planets that concern us a great deal. First of all, Saturn, up near the upper left side of the wheel there, and then Admetos, the trans-Neptunian factor, below that, also on the left side of the chart. So this is what we've got going on. Saturn, of course, is the planet associated with the law, with rules, restrictions, losses, blockages, hindrances, separations, imposing limits, consolidation, kind of bringing things together, are all Saturnian factors, as well as scheduling and time management. And that's proving to be a big issue with all the different trials going on here as well. Then we have Admetos, one of our trans-Neptunian friends, which is about absolute final boundaries. We draw the line. You don't go any farther. Raw materials, major hindrances, coming to a full stop. This ends here, says Admetos. Permanent separations, death, condensation, cessation, in the endings of things. And in some cases we describe Admetos as a super Saturn, because what we're looking at here is kind of taking Saturn's tendencies to limit and define things to the ultimate degree with Admetos. So it's interesting because we've got a combination of these two planets right now. And this is one of the things that jumps out at us in this particular chart for these indictments. We've got Saturn in a waning square to Admetos. So what we're doing is combining the energies of Saturn and Admetos in a very particular and powerful way. So this speaks of high stress blockages that can last a long time. That's that Admetos factor, long duration, right? To be in a tight spot, to have stoppages, standstills, bottlenecks, extreme duration, and state of depression as well. All those are the factors that come into play when we combine these two planets. Now, how do we deal with a combination of two planets like this and get something from it that we can apply to other charts and look, for example, at Donald Trump's natal chart? We'll do that in just a moment here. So what we're doing here is looking at the midpoint between the position of Saturn and the position of Admetos here. So we've got Saturn in Pisces and Admetos down in Gemini, and they're forming this waxing square between the two. Now what we're going to do is take the midpoint between these two planets, which comes out to be 19 degrees 30 minutes of the sign of Aries. That midpoint is the point of greatest intensity between the two planets. So whenever we have something connecting with that degree area, 19 degrees 30 minutes of Aries, it's going to get a lot of extra emphasis. Now the transiting Saturn Admetos midpoint at 1930 Aries can be applied to the natal horoscope of anybody, any individual individual, and that will suggest the possible personal impact with that particular person. So it can be somebody famous, it could be you or me, and it's interesting to take a look at where that falls in our individual charts at 19 degrees 30 minutes of Aries. That's where that midpoint is right now. Now here's how the Saturn Admeta's midpoint at 1930 Aries connects with the natal chart for Donald Trump. Now we're going to show this here on the 90-degree dial, which gives us a fourth harmonic projection, and it's easier to see some of these midpoint structures with that. So here we have the Trump's natal chart, 10:54 a.m. June 14th, 1946, and in Queens, New York. And we have this red pointer arrow on this dial, and that's pointing to that position of 19 degrees 30 minutes of Aries there, and where that falls in Trump's chart. And you can see some of these little perpendicular lines drawn across the chart as well, indicating some of the activations that are triggered when something happens at that point. Now again, this is not a natal planet that's aspecting Trump's chart. A transiting pair of planets, the midpoint between the two, what's creating the impact. The transiting Saturn Admeta's midpoint at 19 degrees 30 minutes of Aries activates Trump's natal Saturn Chiron midpoint. Now, this suggests that big obstacles can create embarrassing problems for Mr. Trump, which can provoke unexpectedly positive solutions. So we get really stressed out, face these major challenges, don't want to do it, got to do it, and when we do, things work out in some very interesting ways, usually having nothing to do with what we think is going on. Right? Also, the transiting Saturn Admeta's midpoint at 1930 Aries triggers Trump's natal node Chronos midpoint. That's the true lunar node and the transit Neptunian factor Chronos. Very interesting there, because this emphasizes his personal obligation to connect with high government authorities. That's Chronos, the top authorities there, in matters of legal liability and accountability as well. So that node implies connection. And there's more. The transiting Saturn Admeta's midpoint in 1930 Aries also triggers some key planetary pictures in Trump's natal chart, with each one bringing 3 planets together for a dramatic personal impact. So we have pairs of planets, these 2 planets, Saturn Admetos, in a square to each other, the waning square, but we also get combinations of 3 planets. We call those planetary pictures, and that's what's showing up here with Trump's chart as well with this particular activation. So here's Trump's chart again. On the 90-degree dial, we're going to start here with the position of Admetos to make one of these pictures. We take the degree position of Admetos, and then we add to that the degree position of the trans-Neptunian Vulcanus, and that gives us a degree position that we then take and we subtract from that sum the position of the true lunar node. When we do that, it brings us to right back to 19 degrees 30 minutes of Aries. So this picture then gets formed by this combination, Admetos plus Vulcanus minus the lunar node, and that comes out again to 1930 Aries. And here's what the textbooks say. We photocopied this from the manual just to make things easy here, right? So we get Admetos plus Vulcanus minus node, and it means the individual is connected with things of grave hindrance, where we're liable to attract hard blows of fate, to be under the impact of a heavy blow of fate. So this is not a casual occasion for Mr. Trump when these indictments come down. It's impacting him very, very strongly through the agency of that Saturn Admetos waning square. One more. Let's take another quick look here at the trans-Neptunian Hades in Trump's chart. We take that degree position and add to it our second factor, which in this case is going to be the trans-Neptunian Zeus. So Hades plus Zeus, and then from that we will subtract the third factor, which is Mars. So Hades plus Zeus minus Mars gives us, again, an outcome, the degree position, 19 degrees, 30 minutes of Aries, exactly where the transiting Saturn Admetos midpoint is hitting. This indicates a fire that takes lives, brightly blazing, destructive fire. To die by premeditated murder, battle actions, targeted practice, very dangerous acute illness, violent injury, a deed born out of hate, the end of vacation time, right? To start a new job, or the workers are on strike and are dealing with striking workers and the effects of that. All that stuff that's going on in the news, but it also impacts Trump very, very personally. This is dangerous stuff. And so again, having this being triggered by Saturn Admetos when things can come to a total standstill is a very, very big signal here. So the Saturn Admetos waning square is in play now throughout this entire year. Admetos moves unbelievably slowly. Saturn's pretty slow itself, so it takes a time for all this to work out, creating obstacles that slow down all sorts of individual personal activity, as well as our businesses and public enterprises of all sorts. We can expect some slowing down, backing off here a little bit. And it's not so much that things go into a nosedive as that they can't move forward very easily. It takes longer to get stuff done. So because of retrograde periods, there are three specific dates we're going to pay attention to here when this waning square is exact. So in other words, Saturn will move in and out of orb of this alignment through these three times, three dates. As when the impact is the strongest, we want to pay particular attention to them, and they are March 31st, 2023. That's already happened. Back in the spring was the first exact alignment between the two in that waning square, 90-degree angle. We got one coming up next week here on the 24th of August, 2023, a few days away, and then the final one doesn't quite make it into 2023. It's January 1st, the New Year's Day of 2024. We get the third and final alignment between Saturn and Admetos in this waning square period. Now, this is a fairly rare phenomenon. The last time it occurred, this waning square, was back in 1994, and it will not happen again until 2054. So this is something we want to pay attention to in particular at this time. It's rare enough that we need to be knowing what's going on. Now, the interesting thing here is that with each one of these dates, something has happened concerning Donald Trump, right? So on the 30th of March, the day before this first exact waning square, just hours away, as a matter of fact, the Brooklyn grand jury voted to indict Trump on that date, on March 30th. Now, this is the first time that any former U.S. president had been indicted for a felony. And this was involving with the Stormy Daniels case and the creation of false financial records in order to try to cover up his transactions there. And so that was a pretty major thing for him to be indicted there. It's kind of business paperwork stuff, a little bit boring, so it's been ignored, but it was very significant because it came right on this date of the exact Saturn Admetos waning square. Then we have one coming up August 24th. We're recording this on August 15th, so that's 9 days away. The judge in the case where this the indictments were turned in last night in Atlanta, Georgia, specified that all 19 defendants, including Donald Trump, must appear in that courtroom by August 25th. So that is almost, again, exactly 1 day off of the precise alignment between Saturn and Admetos. This could be a very, very serious occasion for Trump, so we need to be paying particular attention there as well. Then finally, January 1st, of course, New Year's Day. No courts are in session then, but Smith, the prosecuting attorney, the independent counsel there, wants to begin Trump's trial involving the January 6th conspiracy at the federal level. He is the only defendant there, multiple charges against him, and that's scheduled to start the following day on January 2nd. So all of these dates with the Saturn Admetos waning square relate to Mr. Trump very, very dramatically. Now, there are clearly some very serious circumstances ahead for Donald Trump. Due due to the Saturn-Midas dynamic that we're seeing, these are all liable to last a very long time. Trump could also face personal physical danger. We want to emphasize this. Don't want to be too paranoid, but this is definitely a potential for threats here to him in person. He needs to stay tuned into vital astrological considerations along the way. Especially, we want to recommend watching the eclipses coming up this fall, a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse occurring. So, to get an in-depth look at the astrological challenges that are associated with Donald Trump, and there are a bunch of them, be sure to order your instant access to our 90-minute advanced training video. That's titled Untruthing Trump's Horoscope, Personal and Political Astrology Secrets Revealed. Get that at http://bit.ly/UTTHVID. That's a capital U, capital T, capital T, capital H, and the VID is lowercase. That is case sensitive. So go there and check it out, our instructional video on untruthing Trump's horoscope. And again, you can get it at this web address. So you'll enjoy that. It's packed with great information. Includes a bonus of Trump's chart for you to work with as well. So thanks for taking time to join me today. Appreciate your watching. This is Tim Boss with FinancialCyclesWeekly.com. We'll be getting together again real soon.